Hi everyone, I'm Monique and today I'm creating a new layout for Lottie Loves Paper using the beautiful colour study collection by Vicki Boutin. I have 4 small photos. My daughter wanted to do some baking at the weekend and she insisted that I film her. I think she's been watching me film process videos a bit too much. So this layout just documents that sweet little process and some of the really cute quotes that she shares during the filming. And I really don't know what I want to do with this layout, so I'm just flipping through all the beautiful papers in the colour study collection and seeing if any ideas pop into my head as I'm going along. So I'm just flicking through each one, holding up the photos next to them and seeing which ones I think might work and keeping those to one side. So now I'm just going to trim my photos down so that I can work with them and shuffle them about and put them in the right order and decide if I want to have them next to each other or which configuration I'd like to use. Now I finally settled on this grid and yellow patterned paper. It's called Abstract and I'm using the B side, and I just love that grid, and that yellow is just going to create a lovely foundation across my page and give a really good base for those photos and keep them grounded. Now I'm thinking at this point that I want to add some mixed media, so I'm just being prepared and adding a thin coat of gesso to my cardstock, and while that's drying I'm just using a spare sheet of this same pattern paper just so that I can carry on working on my layout and see where I'd like everything to be. So I've gone ahead and backed all those photos onto a white piece of cardstock and I've stuck them really close together so that there's no gaps between the photos. So now I've cut a strip of that lovely heart patterned paper. It's called Handmade and I'm using the A side first, and then I've also got a strip of the colour wheel patterned paper, the B side, and I flipped the heart patterned paper around and I really like the B side as well, so I'm just cutting another strip of that so I can include both sides, and I'm really happy with how that looks. Now I'm not sure if I want to add mixed media to these, so I'm just being prepared and adding a little bit of clear gesso, and in a moment you're going to see me take my dried piece of gessoed paper and put a couple paper boxes on top of it just to flatten it out a bit. It had gotten quite warped, and I always find putting some boxes or books on top of the page for a little bit really helps flatten it out a bit. I really enjoy using mixed media, and no matter how much gesso I apply or thick cardstock I use, my papers always do warp, but it doesn't really bother me because I like the effect of mixed media so much. So I've just added some double-sided tape to the back of those strips and stuck them down, and now I'm going to do some stitching. So I've stitched around the words that say the story and around each photo and along each strip of patterned paper. And now I'm just adding a little bit of white gesso. I'm starting to think where I'm going to add mixed media, and I do quite like when I'm adding mixed media to coloured patterned papers, just adding a little bit of white because it really helps the mixed media stand out with truer colours if it's got a bit of a white background rather than the colours of those patterned papers. So I'm taking that little heart stamp from the colour study stamp set and I'm adding a little bit of texture paste to it. This is a trick that I learnt from Lisa. She's got a lovely channel called It's Only Paper. I'll link her up in the description below, and she used this on one of her journal pages. And the texture paste gives a lovely distressed stamped image, but also lots of lovely texture. So now I'm using spiced marmalade and picked raspberry distress inks, and I'm using the fresh stencil set, the florals, just to create these beautiful orangey pink florals. So I'm putting orange in the center and then blending it out with the pink to the outers of the leaves, and I'm just using parts of the stencil and kind of filling in gaps here and there. I'm not too worried if it overlaps the stencil because there is a bit of a distressed look about this layout. I don't need it to be perfect. I want those florals to be a little bit rough around the edges. So I'm just finding perfect spots and looking and seeing where my photos are and trying to get those florals in a position so they look like they're peeking out from behind my photos and my layered papers and tags over there. I think it needs a little bit of something at the top, so I'm just adding a floral to the top on the left and then coming down from the top as well.
I know that I haven't been who I was. I am supposed to be the one you can trust. I feel so useless 'cause I let you down. I hope there's some way I can make it alright, 'cause I know that you deserve much more than this.
Now I'm just coming back in with the texture paste and the stamp, and I'm doing a second coat on the little hearts that I've already stamped, and then I'm doing a few more hearts coming out of the top of that little stack of papers, and I'm going to do a couple in the top little cluster of stenciled florals as well. Now I'd like to add a few more layers behind the photos. I wanted to kind of look like a little grouping of recipe pages, and I was so glad to find a miniature version of the patterned paper that I'm using as my background in the 6x8 paper pad. And then I found another lovely floral. It's the same as the B-side of the abstract pattern paper, except the doodled florals are pink instead of blue. So I've just torn that and popped it to the back of that stack. And for the grid paper, I used an EK Success note paper punch to get that lovely note paper edge. Now I'm just looking at some clip stickers and little tags just to see what works. And I've taken out that floral stamp from the Colour Study stamp set, and I want to add a few more florals, and I've gone for a blue to match the grid pattern, and then also that doodled floral patterned paper that I've used as well. So I've added ink to the stamp, then I've stamped it on a scrap piece of paper, and then just used a second impression with the same ink. So it's really, really subtle. You can barely see it there, but you'll see in the close-ups at the end, just gives a little bit of extra texture. So now I've got some craft foam and my tacky glue, and I'm sticking that down, and it is time to get my photos all sorted and glue all those layers in the back together.
And I want you to know that I'm lost without you. I'm not without you. I hope.
For a multi-layer stack like this, I do find it really helpful to work from the photo backwards with my layers, rather than adhering my photos to the page and then trying to tuck all those layers in the back. I then attached a little tab that says today to my pink patterned paper. I used a stapler and I had some lovely gold staples, and that worked really well. Now I'm just sticking it all down onto the background, and I'm really happy with how that's looking. Now it's time to work on my title, and I've got the lovely word thickers from Colour Study, and I've settled on the title The Details, because I'm going to be including quite a lot of quotes that my little girl said during her mini demo of baking. So I thought that would work perfectly. And now I'm just going through the various different complementary pieces from the collection just to see what I can dot about and what's going to work. So I've decided to pick up this lovely sheet of pattern paper. It's called Journal, and I'm going to fussy cut some of those lovely daisy florals and just dot them about and see where I think they might look nice. Like I said at the beginning, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with this layout, so it was very much a case of trying and seeing and playing and experimenting as I went along and seeing what I liked. So now I'm just gluing them down. I've lifted up the edges of each of the petals a little bit just to give a little bit of extra dimension, and I'm going in and sticking them all down. So I removed all the other sticker elements that I tried out, but I did keep that little clip, and I'm just taking some silicone glue to stick it down. I love silicone glue for adding extra dimension and height, and it's really great because you can manipulate it so that part of your item is flush with the page and the other end could be raised, so it's really nice from that perspective. Now I'm just sticking down my title, and I've added in a gold arrow to point down to the photos. And I've also picked out 3 little hearts from those puffy thickers as well. They're gold, and they've just got a nice outline, and they work beautifully with that gold arrow and just bring the gold together. Then there's another little set of puffy hearts and stars in the collection. So I've just picked out a few of the hearts in light pink, dark pink, and an orange, and it just ties in beautifully with the full color scheme. So I've dotted those about as well. Some at the bottom, on the sides, and above the title as well. Now, lately, most of my layouts are not quite finished until I've added some sequins. So I'm adding in some translucent orange sequins, and they come in 3 different sizes, and I'm just putting some at the bottom, the top left, and then that very top cluster as well, and just dotting them about, kind of unevenly spaced so they look like they've just been dropped on the page.
I know that I haven't been who I was. I am supposed to be the one you can trust.
Something else I really enjoy doing lately is just adding a thin black drawn border around my photos or different elements on the page. So I'm just going in with my fine tip pen and doing that. And now it's time to add some of my daughter's really sweet little quotes. So I've got a little teeny tiny stamp set there, and I'm stamping out all her quotes. This is going to form my journaling. I will at a later date add in a little note, a handwritten note, which I'll maybe pop on the back of the page, just as I cannot trust my memory, but I really wanted her sweet words to be the highlight of this page.
Well, you mean to me, 'cause I don't know what to do if you go. I just don't know what to do.
Now this quote is one of my all-time favorites. It says, "My mom is just helping me because I don't know really how to bake. I'm just a kid." And when she said it, it was just the cutest thing ever. So I definitely wanted this one to stand out, and I've added my date there, and I'm just going in and sticking those little teeny tiny quotes into suitable places amongst those photos. I've tried to match up the quotes with the photos so that they make sense, and I'm just adding a little doodled border around as well. I'm absolutely loving creating with this gorgeous colour study collection. It's all available in the Lottie Loves Paper online store if you're looking for a new collection to add to your scrappy stash. Lottie Loves Paper, along with 3 other UK-based scrappy businesses, are also hosting a fun National Scrapbooking Day event on Saturday, so I'll link everything up below. It would be fab if you could join us. And thank you so much for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Instagram at Handmade Happy by Monique, and I hope something you saw today gave you some new ideas and you get to create a little bit of joy for yourself as well. Thank you for watching. Bye.